The pain in my face screamed as I fell to my knees whimpering. On the ground holding my face, praying that this pain would go away. I had known that I should have went to the dentist ages ago, but the fear of needles and the scraping was far too intense. So now here I was, laying on my bedroom floor, holding my face, feeling as if I'd just taken a shotgun blast to the jaw. I had cracked my back left molar months ago, but like I mentioned, I'd never went to the dentist. But now that I was in the most pain that I've ever felt, the regret that I was feeling for my decision was indescribable. My girlfriend walked into the room and found me on the floor in the fetal position. After miming what was wrong to her, she yanked me up off the floor, with power that I didn't even know she had, and she dragged me to the car. While in the car, she asked, "Why didn't you tell me about your tooth?" Still holding my face with my eyes squeezed shut, she continued, "Oh right, your crippling fear of the dentist. Don't worry," she said. "There may be a chance that you can just get a filling, instead of having to get it pulled. My dentist is a miracle worker." Hearing this, it gave me a spark, something to hold on to, a feeling of hope that maybe, just maybe, that I wouldn't have to feel the dentist manhandle a tooth out of my skull. Sitting in the waiting room while still holding my face, my girlfriend spoke with the dental secretary to get me sorted out. After a while, I was surprised to hear that I was getting served immediately. My girlfriend apparently had some connections, because I wasn't expecting to get served that fast, but I was glad that I did. It felt as if my tooth was genuinely fighting the inside of my mouth. She told me that I was lucky, and that her dentist didn't have any appointments, so that I was able to get attended to immediately. After being led to the room where I'd be served, the secretary my girlfriend spoke to told me to sit and wait, and that the dentist would be there shortly. Sitting in the chair nervously, I couldn't help but look around the room. It was filled with charts and models of the mouth. It really wasn't helping the uneasiness that I was feeling, and the tools on display only made me feel like running out of the office. Luckily though, the doctor entered the room before I made a move for the door. He was a young man, and I was surprised to see that he wasn't much older than me. If anything, he could have been younger. His face conveyed a welcoming, warm smile that made me feel a little at ease, and he walked me through what had to be done. He said that an x-ray was necessary to see what the damage was like to the tooth, and to see if a filling was even possible. Hearing that a filling might not even be possible sent a shiver down my spine. But the dentist put a hand on my shoulder, and with a smile he said, "Don't worry, if it comes down to an extraction, you won't even feel a thing." After the x-ray was done, the dentist explained what the results were. He showed it to me, and where my tooth was, it looked like an outline of a tooth, with an obvious chip in it, but on the inside, it was completely darkened. It was in stark contrast to the teeth surrounding it. They had clear outlines of nerves and were obviously more healthy. I looked to the doctor, who had a sullen look on his face, who then told me something that I didn't want to hear, but I knew it was coming anyway. "You're gonna have to get it extracted." Now, fear is something that I've contended with before in my life, just like everyone else, and I've found ways to deal with it, like my first time watching a scary movie as a kid, or when a centipede crawled across my bare foot that one time. But this was probably some of the scariest news I've ever been told. I could feel the blood drain from my face when the news hit my ears, and the dentist noticed it also. He instantly started telling me things like, "It won't hurt," or "You won't even feel a thing," and "It'll be over before you know it." After about 30 minutes of talking, somehow, some way, he convinced me to let him pull the tooth. Before he started, he told me one thing that I wish he hadn't. "Now, I know I said you wouldn't feel anything, but you will feel something. Now, it's not going to be pain. I promise you it won't be pain. But you will feel a little pressure. That's it." The thought of feeling anything scared me, but I had already laid back in the chair and had somehow found the courage to tell him to go ahead. I really didn't feel like sitting in the office for another 30 minutes trying to psych myself out again. Telling him to go ahead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my headphones. I was glad I had the foresight to bring them. Hopefully they'd keep me distracted, I thought. A few minutes later, half of my face was numb, which was a good feeling, relieving me from that bastard that was embedded in my skull. Then the dentist started with his tools. Just like he said, I didn't feel any pain, but the pressure was horrible. It was very odd, considering my face felt like it was made out of rubber. But something else that was so much worse was the scraping. I couldn't feel it, but I could hear it. The sound tormented me. It made it so much worse that I was wearing headphones and I could still hear it. It was like plugging my ears while humming. After a few more minutes of this, I opened my eyes, which I had shut tight like a vice, and I looked at the doctor. He was visibly sweating and had a grip on my head that I hadn't noticed up until now. He noticed me and grunted, "Little bugger's really in there." Then all of a sudden he made a twisting motion with his hand, and I heard a crack. It made me wince, even though I didn't feel anything, and at that moment, I could have kissed the person who invented anesthesia. After the crack, I thought he was finished, but felt uneasy to see him reach back in. Then I felt more pressure, and then there was a wet popping sound that's hard to describe. And as the dentist pulled his hand back, I looked to see my tooth, clenched in between his utensil. After a few more moments, with a tube in my mouth that was sucking out copious amounts of blood, the doctor packed my mouth with foul-tasting medicine and gauze. He then read me a list of rules to follow to avoid any infections or getting something called dry socket. The first few days after the tooth extraction were weird. I was free from the pain of the toothache, but my jaw still hurt. It was nothing to write home about, but it was still irritating. The dentist told me not to prod the extraction area with my tongue, which I thought would be easy to do, but it was genuinely hard for me. I was so used to having a chunk of bone where there was no longer any, and I developed a habit of just putting my tongue around the hole and sometimes inside of it. I quickly stopped doing this though when I started to taste something foul. It started about 3 days after the extraction. I was just doing some work around the house and I started to prod the area with my tongue when the taste hit me. It was disgusting, and I instinctively spat. I also instantly regretted doing this, because there was now a giant glob of spit covering my coffee table. After cleaning my impromptu mess, I moved to the bathroom. I approached the mirror and opened my mouth. Looking inside, I could barely see anything, so I grabbed my phone and flicked on the flashlight. Gazing to the back of my mouth, I saw the pit where my tooth once was. It was gray and green, and it looked as if it oozed. My hand shook as I kept staring. It was disgusting to look at, and it made my stomach turn. Out of habit, not even realizing it, my tongue moved towards it. I was yanked back to reality when once again the taste hit me. I doubled over. Somehow the taste was even worse than before, and I was now bringing up my lunch in the sink. After scrubbing my tongue with my toothbrush and washing my mouth out with warm salt water, which helped and didn't help at the same time, it made my mouth taste salty, but also spread a faint taste across my palate. I moved to my phone to call the dentist, then I froze. The experience at the dentist came rushing back to me. While it wasn't horrible, for some reason it still scared me. Placing my phone back down, I decided that I would, give it a couple days. Maybe it would get better on its own. That whole, maybe it would get better on its own thing, was complete wishful thinking. After a day, a quarter of my mouth tasted exactly like the extraction point. The second day was even worse. Now half of my mouth tasted like it. Somehow, I wasn't throwing up my guts, but that was probably the only positive part of my situation. I somehow made it through a third day, and now my mouth was coated in the taste. It started to take over the flavor of foods that I ate. I could barely taste anything. I even downed half a bottle of lemon juice and I could barely taste it. I knew I had to go to the dentist when my girlfriend went in for a kiss, and I saw the look on her face. Apparently the scent penetrated my lips, and she could smell it even before I opened my mouth. I told her what was happening, and she immediately sent me to the dentist. Now I would say I reluctantly went to the dentist, but at this point I couldn't take it. The taste was so horrible I was willing to take any amount of needles to deal with it. I drove up to the doctor's office, and noticed a note that was taped on the other side of the glass door. It read, "We are sorry to say that the dentist won't be in for a while. He doesn't know when he'll be able to return to service. We are very sorry for the inconvenience." It was signed with a smiley face, with comically large teeth that showed far too much gum. I called up my girlfriend and told her what the note said. She was quiet for a second, then she asked, "He?" "What?" I replied. "My dentist is a woman." I stood there, holding my phone for a moment, then said, "What? He's not a young guy? Around my age?" "No," she said. My dentist has been working there for ages. She barely misses a day. Come to think of it, I've never even seen that secretary before. This information hit me like a sack full of bricks, and without even noticing it, my tongue started to move towards the hole in my mouth. That's when I realized that there was something wrong. There was something there. Something had filled the hole. Sprinting back to my car, I looked into the rearview mirror and opened my mouth. It was dark, so I told my girlfriend I'd call her back, and I flicked on my phone's flashlight. With a shaky hand, I raised my phone to my mouth and looked inside. And right there, right where there should have been a hole, right where my tooth was pulled, sat a mushroom. Shocked, I instinctively reached into my mouth and tried to pull at the growth. My index finger and thumb grabbed a hold of the mushroom, and before I could think better of it, I pulled. As I yanked, a resounding shriek of pain rang out through my mouth and spread all throughout my face. I let go, holding my face with my eyes watering on the verge of tears. I raised my phone back up to my mouth and looked inside. As I inspected the mushroom, I could see what looked like veins covering it. Then it made a throbbing motion, and it grew a little bigger. Hello once again. I'd like to start this outro by apologizing for the lack of content on my channel. I've been in something of a rut for the past 2 weeks and couldn't finish a story that I was writing, so I scrapped it and I made this one. You would know that if you followed me on my Twitter. Hint hint, nudge nudge. Anyway, now that I have my excuse out of the way, I'd like to give a nice, warm welcome to all of my new subscribers on my channel. I'm now sitting at 55 subscribers as of recording this video, and it's all thanks to I Am Night Terror. By allowing a few other smaller narrators and myself to narrate on his channel, he's given us a boost in subscribers, and I am very grateful for that. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this story enough to make you want to stick around. As usual, all of my important links are in the description down below. Any comments are always appreciated. It's always nice to get feedback from you guys. So as always, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm a little more than halfway to 100 subscribers, and being that close to 100 is insane. Anyway, that's enough talking from me. So, I hope to see you guys next time, when I bring you another horrific tale from a world much like your own.